I'm Mel Stewart, and this is a GMM takeover of the Swim Swam podcast. Joining me today, 9-time Olympic medalist Ryan Murphy. We're going to unpack Paris. We're going to dig in. We're going to have some fun. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. How you doing, Mel?
I'm tired, but I feel like if I say I'm tired and I complain to you, that it sounds so weak. You did the heavy lift, and that was an unusual Olympic Games, and it looked like it looked like there was a lot of work there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a 9-day meet is long just in general, and I think this Olympics definitely felt like a full 9-day meet. There was a lot of mental stress throughout that entire week, but we battled through it.
You know, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. There's been a lot of ink spilled. Everybody's talking about it. Team USA, 8 medals. Regan Smith pulls out a gutsy leadoff, pulls out an Olympic record on the medley relay. Top, swimming Australia. So we won the medal count, but we know just based on data, worst performance since 1988. If you calculate our performance from trials to the Olympics, worst performance since 1956. Still won the medal count, but it's not what we were used to seeing. I don't know how that felt as somebody who is a 29-year-old, 9-time Olympic medalist, leader on Team USA. You know, how did it feel inside the bubble?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're in the moment at a swim meet, I mean, pretty much every swim meet, you're really just trying to feed optimism the whole way. And I think our strength as a team has really always been our depth. Like, we're getting to day 5, 6 of the meet, and we're throwing fresh bodies into events, and that's not normal when you compare to other countries. And so you're always kind of feeding off that fresh energy, those fresh bodies. So that was really like where we were keeping the focus during the meet. I think coming off the meet, like I'm definitely reflecting on the team performance, and we hold ourselves to a high standard. And we're not going to stop doing that. I think we have to expect the world to continue to get faster, and we've got to raise our level in order to hopefully have more gold medals, more medals overall at the next Olympics.
For anybody out there listening, it's there's a thing that was happening in the background while this was going on. Anybody who's ever won a medal going back into the 1960s, they're on group text, they're blowing up each other's phones, they're going, what's happening? And they have a real sober, analysis and takeaway on it. But they want to get granular, and they're asking questions, and they're asking me because I'm a little bit closer to the situation. What happened? Was there anything different between trials and this Olympic Games as opposed to a past trials and Olympic Games? And I know one thing. I know that Team USA showed up at training camp, and the pool, I think that there were several pool options, but the coolest pool was like 83 degrees. That's been confirmed. Were there more things like that, or was that, how much of a hurdle was that?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like when I look at it, like I'm really looking at a 12-month period leading up to the games. So, I mean, I'll get to the pool temperature in a second, but like in the 12 months leading up to a games, we need to just look at that. Like, what are we doing? What does the support look like? I think the coaches across the U.S., I mean, we're doing the best we can. I think from a motivation standpoint, from a desire standpoint, that's always at an all-time high in the Olympic year. But I think we could definitely improve in helping people figure out where they can improve. I think that's kind of been on the athletes and their coaches to understand, okay, like, yeah, we're maybe losing a little bit in these portions of the race, and we're going to adjust the training plan based upon that. But I think we can look at that a little bit more and get a little bit smarter with how we're approaching improvement. And then as we get to training camp, yeah, I mean, like there's no Olympics is going to be perfect, and we know that. Like, once we get to the Olympics, like, we have to be ready for anything. And so we kind of we started that mentality at training camp. It's like, yeah, pool temperature, not ideal. What are we going to do about it? Like, we can't. Like, we're going to continue to show up and do what we can every day and put our best foot forward. And we just started that mentality a little bit earlier.
I had a question loaded, but it's hard for me to get off this topic. How do you train in a pool that's 83 degrees?
I mean, I think the coaches they were making adjustments. Like, it's a little bit different if you're comparing someone like me to, maybe like the open water group, because like when I'm 2 weeks out of a meet, like I'm not really doing more than like 3,000 in a practice. Like, I'm already resting. So like it doesn't impact me, but like, yeah, if you're just in a warmer setting, like your heart rate gets higher faster, it stays higher for longer. So you just have to make a little bit of adjustments on the intervals in that scenario.
You're talking 12 months out. It's in everything on the run up to Olympics is always that. Everything's built year over year. It sounds like through this response that you're talking, it sounds to me like this is a leadership situation where if the objective and mission is clear and the support is there month over month as you're moving forward. And there's been a lot of conversations about that. We haven't had a national team director. We had one from 1989 to 2017. Maybe do you think that's something that would help solve the problem?
Well, I mean, like I'll just explain my thought process. Like when I finish the end of the season, like I'm completely trying to just open up the entire book and like just practice extreme honesty with myself. And I asked Dave Durden to do the same thing with me. He asked me to practice extreme honesty with him. So that's the way that we go about things. And we just kind of uncover like, Dave, how was my approach throughout the season? Like, were there any parts where you felt like I was a little bit off? Like, where could I be better? How could I be a better teammate? Looking at all the areas to improve, like where do you think we're going to get better? So I have that relationship with Dave, and yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to broaden that out and just practice that extreme honesty across the board and just have the conversation of how can we get better. And I don't necessarily want to like throw that on one person or anything like that, but I think as a nation, like we're going to be very fired up to improve. And I think it's important that we take steps to do that.
I think it's leadership, but use your own metaphor. It could be, and there are a lot of different leaders when you're a national team athlete, an Olympic athlete. A lot of people have to make the right decisions so that there's no gaps. It just in Paris, we send staff, so I watched this Olympic Games on the couch and watched it. We watched it live. We did like a watch party where we're doing it on SwimSwam. Then I would watch it a second time at night, old school, like we did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where you get the popcorn and you sit there and you just enjoy it. And from an entertainment standpoint, I really loved this Olympics. There were times it was kind of odd, but it felt like it hit and it delivered. But there was also the emotion of just watching the swimming performance and seeing ups and downs, near misses, off the podium. And you said that everyone was positive in the bubble. How do you reset day over day? Because Team USA in the past, it seems like we've always gotten lucky breaks. It seems like we've always sort of pulled it out. Something's happened. And this time it seemed like it was, there were a lot of tough pills day after day. How do you maintain your positivity in that kind of an environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like I'll take my situation as an example. Like I get out of the 200 back semi and like I'm crushed. Like I'm like just like absolutely crushed. And like I make the decision off of that. Like, okay, I'm not gonna go back to the team section right away because it's like what good am I gonna do there? So I kind of just like took my stuff, put it down in a corner. Like I brought Dave Durden over, like talked with him, and then I just got into the warm down pool. I think the great thing about swimming is that you can't take your phone into the warm down pool. I think it's probably the only sport where you get out of a race and you're not looking at your phone immediately. And I think that's a great thing. So I'm able to go down to the warm down pool. I'm in there for 30 plus minutes, kind of framing things in my head so that when I go into the team section, I'm not bringing all this negative emotion there. And so I think as a team, we talk about that beforehand, where it's like, okay, look, like the Olympics is a normal swim meet. We're going to have hits. We're going to have misses. Like if you're one of the hits, bring that energy back to the team section and we're going to utilize that. If you're one of the misses and you got to take some time to yourself, like take it to the warm down pool. If you still feel like you need some more time, like we'll help you get your stuff, like go back to the village, take your time, and when you're ready to be positive, come back to the group and we're pumped to have.
You're an adult on the national team, very mature. We're waiting for you to exit the sport and become a hedge fund manager. And but it's something that you've always communicated with us, providing background information that was just informational. This is A, this is B, this is C, which is something that I valued in terms of our friendship. But this is going to really piss people off. I didn't watch the 200 back final. I was so mad. I should have. I just didn't watch it. I looked at the results later. Because at trials, after that 154.3, I was fired up. I was so fired up. What happened between trials and a 154.3 and then 150? Did you underestimate what it would take to get in?
Yeah. I'll say like the whole like day and a half after the semi, I was really not in a good spot either. I really wish I could just get into that. I was like, wish I could have gotten into that mixed medley relay just the next day. I was ready to race again. Going into the semi, like I feel like I take a risk every time I go into semis. Like my goal going through semis is to get through the semis with as little energy expenditure possible. That's been my strategy my entire career. And in this case, like I took a risk and it didn't pay off. Like I came off and I remember my bad races better than I remember my good ones. So like I've woken up a couple of times in the middle of the night, like thinking about this. So like I remember coming off the 150 wall and I was like, okay, like I'm going to go make my move. I did that and I shut it down too early. And then I felt like, okay, I could see these guys starting to go past and I was like, oh shoot, like I got to pick it up again. And then when I tried to pick it up, I just couldn't. So I just made a strategy error in that one. And I mean, I've definitely like beat myself up enough about that. So that one was tough.
You know what? It's good to unpack this because there's a lot of kids out there that make mistakes all the time, but you also make mistakes when you are a stalwart stock and you're as consistent as you have been winning 9 Olympic medals. So, okay. So that's right. Semis, you're managing energy systems. You're trying to get through and just get into the final. Makes sense. I saw that 52.08 lead off on the mixed medley relay. And I'm like, you're there, you're in range. You're like within a hair's breadth of your world record. And, you were 52.3 in the 52.39 in the individual, 52.08 in the mixed medley, and then 52.4 on the leadoff on the medley relay. How do you review that when you go back and you do the Ryan Murphy, Dave Durden unpacking? How do you review that? Yeah,
I mean, I'd say like you always get a bump on the mixed medley relay. Like there's just less waves when you're swimming next to one guy and one girl. So like over the course of my career, I'm typically 2/10 faster on the medley relay or on the mixed medley relay. And that's been pretty consistent across the board. So like I expected going into the mixed, especially when I saw Australia was leading off with Kaylee, like I expected to be faster than my individual there. I mean, I still think that mixed medley relay was a better swim than my individual 100 back final. So like, if I just swam like that in the individual final, I think I'm faster. And then the men's medley at the end, yeah, I mean, we probably had, like Nick and I you kind of get stuck in the Olympics. Everything just takes longer. So like after the mixed medley relay, like you go right to medal ceremony, you're in media for a while. So it's just like everything takes longer. And I think we probably both just didn't feel like we warmed down enough after that race. Just 'cause like when you're getting in the water an hour after the relay, like your body's not hurting anymore, but you still need to like work that through. And so that was, I think that's something that I'm thinking about as an area where I could have been a little bit better in the preparation, but we probably had on that day.
We heard that this was an uncomfortable Olympics. For anybody who's out there and your experience, and you go to World Champs or Pan Pacific Championships, and you're in a hotel. It's usually a lot more comfortable. You go to an Olympics, and the reality is you're going to this massive, massive corporate convention with sports on the side. And some are really well organized and some are not. Kept getting feedback that this was a little bit uncomfortable. And it was it, how long were the bus rides? Was it hot? What was it, or was it great?
Yeah. I mean, I think the message that I had to the team, but before we even went to the Olympics is like, expect the unexpected. Don't expect great conditions. That's kind of how the Olympics are. Like, it's not like a perfect scenario for performance, and it never is. So, I mean, I think that like how it ended up being is really what we expected. And then the second part of my message to the team was, and no matter what the situation is, like, we're not going to complain about it. We're gonna do what we can with whatever the situation is, and we're gonna handle it the best out of anyone. So that's my feedback on that.
Olympics are uncomfortable. I wonder, it's like, if everybody gets that speech. You're giving that speech on this team. I got that speech from Matt Biondi and Tom Jayer in the 80s and 90s, and I love that speech.
I got it from Phelps in 2016.
Yeah, no, it's good. The leadership does come from within, and it comes from your peers, your older peers, and they do hold your hand, and it's like, makes all the difference in the world. That final day, we with Fink's mile, it was we waited a long time. That was an impressive swim. I think everybody was going bananas, going, he's finally putting it into the gear. He's putting it out there at the start. He's not just saving it for that last 50. What was the atmosphere in the Team USA seats?
It was killer. I mean, the warm down team area was just a little bit lighter that night. It was the last night, so most of the team was able to be in the stands. So in the team section, I think I was finishing warm up as the race started, or it was like coming from the bathroom. So I kind of tuned in starting out like the 600, and Bobby's typically he's just hanging with everyone, and he'd already kind of blown it wide open. So that was great to see. He took that race and he grabbed it by the horns real early, and I can't imagine it felt great. He definitely probably put himself through some pain, but that's awesome to see. He's a racer, and you love it when the people swimming the longest grueling races are racers, and they're willing to put it out there, and there's just no fear. So that was a great swim from Bobby, and we were so pumped for him.
The men's 4x100 medley relay is it feels to me like this crowning achievement, and we came up silver. And I feel horrible even looking at the math and playing swim nerd because of commenters, but I find myself doing the same thing. And I'm like, if Ryan had been what he was on the mixed medley relay, which I now know, it was harder because it wasn't as wavy. And if Hunter had been, his same split as in the 4x1, it'd have been a tenth or two ahead of China. But I think that's really unfair, also considering it was the 9th day. But what's play rowdy games? What's your analysis of that medley?
I mean, it's hard for me to play rowdy games because I'm still holding emotions from that one, so it's hard for me to totally detach. But I'm still upset with myself on that relay. And I think that's the USA culture. We want to be the best every time we get in the water, and so that's definitely the standard that I try to hold myself to, and that's definitely one that I'm fired up about. That's nothing to take away from China. They had a great race. If you throw a 45.9 at the end of any relay like that, that's killer. So that was absurd to watch. They were really good on that relay, and that was. In terms of atmosphere during a race, that might have been the loudest the arena was. The French team was in it, so that was a really cool atmosphere. I don't know, my positive takeaway from the race was it was a really cool atmosphere to feel. So I liked that, but yeah, definitely thinking of like, okay, what could I have done differently to be faster there?
Losses are always interesting in the context of history. And, your teammate, Dressel, he did not have a good 100 fly, and then turned around and in the relay popped a 49.4. And that was his one silver medal. Everything else has been gold. But I bet he hurt more and worked harder for that silver than he did all the other gold medals. And I think in decades, he's probably going to appreciate it a lot more. I think that this is going to be a story medley relay as on the run up to Los Angeles, LA 2028. And I'm wondering if it's going to keep you in the pool and competing until Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely an appeal to a home Olympics. Like, and I think like from a physical standpoint, like there's no doubt in my mind. I feel like I can be ready for that. And I think it's really just working from right to left to figure out the best strategy in order to make a push in 2028. Like I think there's a lot of things that I've set myself up with outside of the pool that I'm really excited about. So I'm opening up a swim school towards the end of this year, and that's a great project for me to get away from swimming. It's a great way for me to give back. And then I'm involved with a couple of investment groups out in the Bay Area too that keeps my mind fresh. So I think the first thing that I look at when deciding to continue competing is like, will I enjoy this the next 4 years? And for me, what helps me enjoy it is having balance and making sure that my mind is active in other areas. And I feel like I have that balance. And so now it's really just figuring out a plan of like, okay, like when do I want to be like all in on swimming in order to try to make it push to 2028? And what does it look like? Cause I'm going to take a couple months off right now and then kind of assess like, if I'm ready to rock in January, I'm ready to rock in January. But it's hard for me to make that commitment right now, especially when the Olympics is so fresh.
You got to decompress. Lee Zach, he was 32, 33, 34. I'd have to look it up when he did the most famous comeback swim in swimming history and saved Phelps so he could get his 8-for-8 gold medals. So yes, we've seen great performances and monumental performances at that age for our men. And I think about Tony Irvin, oldest Olympic champion, 35. I think that medal is a whole lot more sweeter than when he was 19.
Yep. I think it's different stroke to stroke. I feel like I'm lucky that early in my career, and I feel like this honestly lent for me to have a really solid career. Early in my career, I ran into David Plummer and Mac Reavers. And when I can't remember the first time I beat Reavers, but like I remember the first time I beat him, like as a younger guy, you're like, oh, that's good. Like I marked that off. Like I'm never losing to Grievers again. And then Grievers comes back, and in 2017, I think he was 32, goes 52-1 in the 100 back, which was his best time. So like absolute beast of a competitor. And David Plummer was the same way. I think he won a best time when he was 31 in 2016. So I think backstroke, I think you can have a little bit more longevity. And I have first person examples with those two guys who really like forced me to be on top of my game when I was like kind of the young upstart.
I hope to see you in Los Angeles. But we skipped over a topic. We were talking about the medley, and you sat there. You had front row seats to see China in their triumphant win. There's been a lot of ink about the Chinese swimmers and the 23 positive doping tests. And SumSwam broke that story. We started hearing from sources saying that USADA was saying one thing, and we weren't sure if it was real. So the report was actually, hey, this is what we're hearing. And if what these sources are telling us is true, then it means X. And we went live, and about 2 hours later, the New York Times went live because they had this story for years and hadn't moved on it. But it feels murky. And if I talk to Travis Tygart, CEO of USADA, he's like, I just want to see the data. The data has to be, they need to make it available for everybody to review. I I've personally never been in that situation as an athlete. I'm never concerned about doping among the men's side. I don't know what kind of effect that has on you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it, like, to answer the question, like, you can't let it have an effect on you. It's kind of like these things it plays itself out over time. But I think, like, really the way that we're framing it as athletes is we really just want consistent application of the rules across every country. And it's really as simple as that. I think athlete confidence is at a low with WADA, and I think they have a great opportunity to increase their communication and increase their transparency with the athletes.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot more questions I could ask you, but it's getting a little bit late. And I'm wondering what you're going to do for, the decompression time. What does that look like? Is there going to be a lot of golf?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to the driving range yesterday, and probably those first 20 balls, it wasn't really getting off the ground. So I had to dial in that swing a little bit more. But I'll be going out this weekend with some of the guys, and that's gonna be great. So I think that's one piece. Opening up the swim school, that's gonna be some good thought and energy going towards that. And then my wife's pregnant, so I got to make sure I'm in a supportive role there and making sure I'm helping her out with whatever she needs.
Maybe you leaned into Dressel, be like, "Hey, what's going on? You've been through this. What's happening?"
I was asking him all these questions. Nick Fig too. I was like, "Hey, what goes on? Like, I know what the first little bit of pregnancy looks like. What are the changes that go on after this? What do I have to be prepped for?" So I feel like those are my three dad mentors are Nathan Adrian, Caleb, and Nick Fink.
It's the coolest thing in the world. It's like winning an Olympic gold medal. Pretty awesome. And it pales in comparison to being a parent.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be great. I just like it, really like new experience and just add great perspective to my life, I think.
So we're winding down here. So what do we do? So we just go dark, and then we start prowling around. We start blowing up your phone in January. Hey, bud, you back in the water? What's going on? Is that your feedback for swim swam?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, you can shoot me a text in January. I'll let you know where I'm at.
All right. Good talking to you, buddy.
Yep, you too. Later.